So with the For Bikini Bottom Rehydrated demo being unveiled at GamesCom, there are a lot of different details here that I was able to pick up on. What are they? Let's discuss right now.
I got hot sauce in my bag.
Quick shout out to Paul was right. This is a very interesting fan art Metal Duckles that they made. It's actually a game cover using my profile pic. And what we got here is a video game called New Super Metal Duckles Go to a Galaxy Remastered. And I'm just like, yes, buy this in a heartbeat, and you all should too, so that I can get funds from it. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Anyway, hello there beautiful human. My name is RidersDX. Welcome to my channel, where today we've got yet another For Bikini Bottom Rehydrated video, but it's a video I'm actually really looking forward to making, and that is an in-depth analysis of the gameplay we got at GamesCom. And so, this being a game that I actually did play a lot as a kid, there were definitely a lot of small details I had noticed that maybe not other people probably wouldn't pick up on, and that's because I'm obsessed, I'm a nerd, and this is how I get joy out of my life. So I'm just really excited to kind of just dive into the gameplay specifically and just point out all the small little details that I did notice that you probably didn't. Now with this list, it's pretty extensive, so I actually skip over quite a few of the really big points that everyone got. I just think that like there's a lot of videos already talking about like a lot of the big points that were noticed in the footage, and so I'm focusing more on the small details that you probably missed. So let's go ahead and get right into the list. I have 15 items total, so yes, I am pretty obsessive. We're gonna start with a really huge one, and that's number one is the title screen. So before the demo is started, you get to see this title screen with a lot of art that we've already seen before, but we also got quite a few new things in this title screen that a lot of people didn't notice, and I actually didn't notice myself until someone pointed it out to me. So shout out to Bionicle Forever 12. This is a user in my Discord server that brought this to my attention. And so in the title screen, we actually got a first look at quite a few new robots. So we got the Father and the Hammer robots, but we've also got a look at the Chompbot, Tartar, and Monsoon. The Chompbot looks pretty identical to the original one, but the Tartar has a bit of a different design where its tartar sauce container looks more like a shampoo bottle than like flat, square, rectangular container that was in the original game. So that's a bit of an interesting design change. With the Monsoon, instead of having a red and white umbrella, it has a rainbow umbrella now, and so it definitely fits in with the more colorful scheme that this game has going for it compared to the original. Also, one last thing that I was able to pick up from the title screen actually is that we got a quick look at the stone Tiki, which doesn't look too different from the original, but if anything, it just looks a little bit more smooth. I look forward to seeing it in action in the actual game. Now number two, this is a really tiny detail, but while watching the demo footage, I noticed that there were more bubbles flying around everywhere, and so obviously the big thing is that the underwear and the socks are now inside bubbles instead of just standing by themselves within the levels. But also, there's actually bubbles flying throughout the entire screen. There's bubbles coming out of plants. This game has a much more underwater feel to it than I feel like the original did, and it just adds a lot more character to the level's aesthetics, and I really dig it. Now number three is some sound effects, and so when Spongebob breaks open the Tikis, you hear a bit of a more rougher sound effect. You know, I can't really explain it. The original game, the sound effect was a lot more lighter. It kind of just seemed like, oh, you were just like hitting a bag or something like that. But when you hit Tikis here in robots, it's a much more harsh sound effect, and it sounds like you're actually like cracking something that's got some substance to it. And so it's definitely gonna take me a little bit getting used to, just because you hear the sound so often. And another thing is that when you collect shiny objects, well, technically in this demo they're called shiny things, which was another thing that I wanted to mention, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But when you collect the shiny things, it sounds like you're grabbing money rather than like kind of little dingy things in the original game. And so it sounds like you're just making change, and it's probably a sound that makes Mr. Krauts wet. So but back to the shiny things thing. So in the demo, instead of being called shiny objects, the shiny objects were called shiny things, although one of my friends theorized that this was probably because it's a German version, and so I think we should just wait until we get like an American version with American footage to kind of just see like if it really was changed to shiny things, because that'd be a bit of a random change, and it'd be really interesting to say the least. Now number four is you remember those mushroom springs in the original Jellyfish Fields that you used to kind of just like spring really high into the air. Well, those were red in the original game, but in this one, they're a solid smooth blue. And I'm a little bit confused on this design change because mushrooms don't usually look like this. It looks very smooth. It looks like plastic basically, and I'm not really sure I like this one compared to the original. It just doesn't really fit into the whole aesthetic of Jellyfish Fields, but it is a change nonetheless. It was one of the first things I noticed when I first saw the footage of the demo. Now, number 5, I want to actually focus on the robots that we see within the footage, and so obviously we saw a bunch of the fodder, which is the very main robot in this game. And something that I found really interesting is that when you get close to the fodder, you can tell that the fodder is actually taller than Spongebob now, which was not the case in the original game. In the original game, the fodder was about half the size of Spongebob, and so now the fodder is like creeping up over you, which is a really interesting thing to see. You know, it doesn't really impact the gameplay much, and doesn't really impact how you feel when you see them, but nonetheless, it's a bit of an interesting change. I wonder if they just didn't scale the robot correctly yet. Another thing is, when the fodder sees you, its eyes turn from green to red, and so it has a much more menacing look to it when it's attacking you, and that's a really great feature to just like add more detail and add more of suspense to the game. And the same thing goes with the hammer robot too. The hammer robot looks a little bit more similar to its previous installment, but it also has that red eye feature, so I envision this being something that all robots will be having. At number 6, this is something I'm pretty sure most people won't pick up on, but the shiny objects have different placements in this demo, and so obviously it has most of the original shiny object placements here, but there's also a few new spots that I noticed that have shiny objects as well. And there's actually a bit of a rationale that they explained with this. I can't recall, but there was like one interview, I'm pretty sure it was like a THQ developer interview, where they basically said that like they were playing around with the shiny object placement to sort of help players find more hidden collectibles in the game that might have been a little bit tricky and really easy to miss in the original game. And this is a very common design philosophy when developers have been making remakes nowadays. They did a similar thing with other remakes, I'm pretty sure. And so I've noticed that shiny objects are being placed in areas that I am 99.9% sure weren't in the original game. And so that's an interesting change that they're making. It's very inoffensive. I'm sure it will help new players kind of navigate their way around the game. At number 7, this is a pretty hot topic in my eyes, but SpongeBob's animations. And so a lot of SpongeBob's animations here look very similar to the original game. You know, one of my favorite parts of his animations in the demo is what he looks like when he's running away from the robots. I think the way that they fix this up is absolutely hilarious. I think SpongeBob looks great when he does that. Although some of the animations do look a little bit altered from the original. Like the biggest thing that I was able to notice is that when SpongeBob walks around, he kind of walks with his hands like just straight down rather than curling up like it did in the original game. That's something I kind of hope they change when the final version comes out. However, I also got to see a bunch of idle animations at the end of an IGN gameplay video, and the idle animations look absolutely awesome. They look ripped directly from the original game, but of course updated with modern graphics, and SpongeBob looks great overall. I think there's still some work to be done with his animations and such, but overall this is a really good solid start. At number 8, this is something I had mentioned in a previous video, but we got to see some of the Tikis and how they were redesigned. And so obviously the main brown Tiki now has a lot of red and yellow colorings on it, and it looks a lot more vibrant and colorful, and I really love the aesthetic here. But another Tiki that we actually got to see in this level that is different as well is the floating Tiki, and the floating Tiki actually has some light green colors on it, which is a really big contrast from its original colors in the original game. And so I'm not really sure how I feel about the green color. It's a little bit off-putting, but I think I'll get used to it as I start playing the game more. You know, it might just be something that I'm just not used to. It doesn't look terrible, mind you, but it is a little bit different and not what I was expecting in terms of design changes for the Tikis. Another really cool thing about this though is that I noticed with the flying Tikis, if you looked at it long enough, its eyes would spin in a circle, and I really love this feature. It's not something that was in the original game, and so little details like this just help to bring the world to life, which is awesome. And number 9, this has to do with the jellyfish here, and so the jellyfish here, they attack in a bit of a different way from the way that they did in the original. In the original game, you got really close to the jellyfish, they would strike you directly, and there was a little to no way of avoiding them. But in this game, I think the jellyfish have a bigger attack radius, and so if you get a little close to the jellyfish, you know, not as close as you would in the original game, they can still attack you. But the jellyfish here, instead of directly attacking you, they form a bit of a force field around them, and if you get too close to them and are in the radius of that force field, then they will attack you and you will face damage. However, you stand far enough from them and they attack you, then you could avoid the attack. And so it's a little bit different from the original game. I don't know if I'll like it better or worse, but you know, I'm pretty solid with this design change. At number 10, this is something that I was a bit surprised about with its design choices, but a lot of the platforms in this level now are barren. They don't have grass on them. Like, one of the biggest examples is the platforms from where Gary is. Those platforms are completely barren, and it's a bit jarring, and it's gonna take some time to get used to. But I think it adds a little bit more variety in terms of the look of this game. I don't think it really matches the original Jellyfish Fields that well in the TV show. The Jellyfish Fields are pretty much covered in grass. You know, it's very hard to kind of spot like barren areas in Jellyfish Fields in most episodes. I'm sure there are some, but it's not that prevalent as it appears to be in Rehydrated. But nonetheless, I think it's a nice design choice and it adds more variety to the look of the game. At number 11, this has to do with the Duplicatotron, and so you see this right before grabbing the first golden spatula. But when the Duplicatotron creates robots and pushes them out, instead of the black ball that you would see in the original game, now we have buckets. And I think this is a little bit similar to what they would do in the movie game. And so I think that's cool. It's a little bit more descriptive and it makes a little bit more sense. And so not a change that I really envisioned them making, but something I appreciate nonetheless. At number 12, you actually can see a clip of Bubble Buddy taking off his hat. I think that's awesome. He didn't do that in the original game, and so I just wanted to put that in there. And number 13 has something to do with the King Jellyfish boss. And so King Jellyfish is a little bit different here compared to the original game. You know, the whole strategy of defeating King Jellyfish is still the same, but King Jellyfish has visual cues now to indicate when it's okay to hit him. And so throughout most of the boss, he will have this electrical surge going throughout his entire body. But once he attacks and he's vulnerable, that electrical surge is not there anymore. And so I think this is a really, really cool detail that they made, and it really is going to help players that are not as used to the game kind of like understand the rationale behind like when to hit him, when to not hit him. And so I think that's a really cool thing that they did. So good job, Purple Lamp Studios, for making the game a little bit more accessible. At number 14, during the boss as well, there is some text that appears throughout the boss whenever you hit him. And this is just not something that was in the original game. The text appears in a similar way as like the combo like terms did whenever you would defeat Tikis and enemies and get shiny object combos. So like one thing that I think that said, for example, was finishing slap. And so I guess it adds a little bit more of an audience effect to the game, which is cool, you know, so yeah. At number 15, I'm kind of gonna cheat with this one, but I actually had a few Discord members that got to play the demo themselves, and they wrote out some of their final thoughts about the demo. And so I'm just gonna share them with you just so you all can kind of get like a sense of like how they felt when they played the game. The first one comes from Spongy124. The demo itself, it definitely made a good impression on me. There are two areas where there's a sign that says coming soon, so I don't know if it's like a brand new item or something from the old game they didn't make yet, so we just gotta wait for that. You could also already collect 3 socks in the level for Patrick, even though you can't visit him. There were also 2 teleport boxes, but they didn't work. Seems like the developers didn't code it yet. And the final boss was just like in the original game, but he had some new animations when he get hit, like him getting angry. And I think something new also was that instead of continuing going after you hit him, he would go back in the center and spawn some pink and blue jellyfish to go after you. Also, you probably already knew this, but there's a 15-minute timer for the demo. The loading screen also is the whole bubbles flying around until the next cutscene or gameplay loads. The Jellyfish King even now has a shield implying you can't just hit him at any time. Well, I mean, you couldn't do that in the original either, but there you didn't know you were allowed to attack him if he's in the air. After you beat him, he takes out the jelly medicine for Squidward, leaves with his stuff as SpongeBob waves him goodbye. After that, the demo ends with a thanks for playing the demo message. Gary was also in the game and he was as useless as in the original. Woof, a shade against Gary, my goodness. The next comment comes from Stefan Evza. Yeah, so I played it too. Actually, it was the first thing I went to and I tested some things to see the progress on the game. But it seems like it's very early in development, because as I jumped out the map, the animation with SpongeBob crawling on the floor was buggy, the hand that takes you back is buggy, and just like Spongy124 said, the bowling arrow and the bungee jump wasn't able to play, but I tried to do the bungee jump for no reason and I just got warped back up. There wasn't a hand that pushed me out of the screen or something like that, I was just kind of teleported back. I think the music quality was actually pretty decent, even for the boss battle with King Jellyfish, which was awesome by the way. So after I finished the demo, I tried to speak with the developer and he said that's really in an early stage of developing, but they were working on it, tried to take the feedback feedback of the community serious. So that sounds good to me, and the demo was really smooth and nice to play, not like the recording from the stream, which seemed like it wasn't running smooth. And so overall, they had some really good impressions about the demo. It sounds pretty promising, but it also sounds like the demo is in early development, and so we're gonna have to wait and see how much the game improves from now to the time it's released. But that's pretty much everything I have for this list, so let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What did you think about the gameplay footage? Did y'all like it? Did y'all not like it? What are some other small details that I missed that you think should have been mentioned in this video? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And yeah, thank you so much. Alright everyone, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you like videos like these, want to see more in the future, follow me on Twitter or Twitch, and join my Discord server, the Spongy Garden. Special shout out to Reese Gaming, Team Rival Sonic Gamer, Andrew Coughlin, Glitch Dolphin, and Blitz Productions. These are my YouTube members / patrons. If you'd like to become a YouTube member or a patron and get access to a whole bunch of different perks, then please check out the links in the description box below. But alright, this is Riders, riding out.